We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
Nosotros crecemos cuando damos.
We grow when we give.
与えるとき成長する。
We grow when we give.
Welcome to ROG, Return on Generosity, a podcast celebrating generosity at work. Not financial giving, giving valuable time, alternative perspectives, and genuine collaboration.
Welcome to the ROG, Return on Generosity podcast. I'm your host, Jabari Whitehead, and today I have some very special guests with us. Tonight, we have Mr. Tay Person and Mr. Mike Wernert. I will say this quote really, for me, describes what this is all about. They say that your circle is your mirror. And I've been very fortunate to have Mike and Tay as the mirror that reflects back to me who I hope to be and the best version of myself in my life. I've been very blessed to have Tay and Mike in my life for quite some time now, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Welcome to the Return on Generosity podcast, Tay and Mike.
Thanks, Jabari. Happy to be here. Excited to be here.
Thanks for having us.
All right. So I'll start with Mike. Mike, what is the most important aspect about you right now?
I think my life right now is about, and it continues to be, personal growth, personal development, constantly getting better. How can I be a better husband, a better father, a better employee, a better friend? It's a continual task, and it's something I focus on every day. You know, I don't want to say 24 hours a day, but close to 24 hours a day. So that's the tip of the iceberg for me right now, Bart.
Mike, but why don't you add to that? What is your actual work?
So for work, I'm in the pharmaceutical industry. I've been in the industry for 20 years. Prior to that, I was in the military officer and I was a math teacher. I've done all different type of stuff in the industry, and currently I'm a national account director.
And Tay Person, if you tell,
Yes, sir.
Answer that same question, please.
Right now, Jabari, given the topic of generosity, and I look back on the last couple of years, I'm in the middle of just giving and growing, right? I have 4 daughters, one in college, 2 in high school, actually 1 graduating tomorrow, go to 8th grade to high school, and then 1 in elementary school. And so in my role as a dad, you know, my day job, just about giving, right? Being the best, whether that's discipline, whether it's love, but always giving, right? On the work side or business side, I've been in education for the last 20 years, 10 as a classroom teacher. I was a board member. I call myself a recovering board member. I was a board member for 6 years. And then I transitioned to the business side of education. And now I help lead a sales team for a company called K-12 Insight.
And my first question to you guys here is our messaging around fatherhood. What are core values that you feel like you were able to take away from your father that was there?
So I was sharing with you, Jabari, that my dad retired from the ministry, and he was also a jack of all trades, right? We had person-to-person moving company when we were younger. My dad retired in March, and I said at his ceremony, I hit the jackpot when it came to parents, both my mother and my father. And so when I think about those attributes of a father, and when I think about fatherhood, I think about presence. Right, worked his butt off, but he was always there, you know, there at the games, there at the events. I've been blessed to have the father that I had in my life and still in my life.
So, you know, like you said, Jabbar, and you know this about me, everybody's life's different. Unfortunately, my father passed when I was younger. You know, I was 2 years old and found out, you know, tragically died. Was kind of left by myself. But his picture always and still does hang on my wall to this day in his military uniform, where he wears a bronze star with a V device. And if you don't know what that means, that's a valor device. And that means that you were in combat and you sacrificed yourself and put your life at risk for other soldiers. It's the 4th highest award you can get in the military. And so, you know, I stare at that picture every day, and, you know, that is the hero that I want to be. But I had a coach, a wrestling coach, who demanded the best out of me. He gave me a fair shot. And I remember him saying, you know, look in the mirror and tell me who you want to be. And I did that, actually. And because he expected of me, I was able to deliver for him.
Knowing that quote, our parents take us as far as they can. What are some things from the model of your own fatherhood, or even your stepfather, whoever raised you, that you had maybe to unlearn and in terms of how you may operate differently or the same in your role as a father today?
Well, I mentioned in my previous comment, my mom did remarry, did have a stepdad. I did learn some things from him, but I had to unlearn some things as well. I realized that, being buddy with your child is not your role as a father. There's times to be friendly and show them love and show them admiration, of course. I mean, fill them with love and admiration. But being their buddy, showing them adult things or proving adult things at a young age, that's not okay coming from a parent, because they look to you as a role model, and what you accept, they accept. And so I think I had to unlearn some of those things. The other thing that I had to unlearn was the words you use with your children are very important.
Yeah, I'll go a little lighthearted here, but if you grew up in a black household, black family, there was always, you heard the saying, spare the rod, spoil the child, right? So, growing up with two boys, my brother and I, we were 4 years apart. And we got after each other, and I always was on the short end of that stick, right? But typically what came after that was, some type of, as the Eagles did in the Super Bowl, BTA, right? The belt to the bottom. And so this was a conversation between my wife and I, younger, like, how are we going to discipline the kids? How are we going to raise them? And so I'll never forget my oldest and I, and she was little at the time. We're at the grocery store, and she was acting up, man. Like went boneless in the store, screaming, you're bright red, and she's yelling and screaming at me, and I reacted, right, little backhand, to the lips, and I never forget her face, right, like eyes wide open, shock, right? And then all of a sudden, her hand went boom, right up to my lips, right? I was like, am I going to react again? And then I really thought about it. And in that moment, I was like, wow, like that's what I'm teaching my daughter, that's okay, right? And that was an eye-opening moment for me, because that's how, we were raised, right? Like that was the construct in our house. And I think sometimes, it probably came from a good place. I think sometimes probably, being a dad, frustration, working all day, coming home, you want your children to love, but maybe a little bit misguided. So I would say when you think about something to unlearn, it was probably that. And like I said, we lived in a loving house home. There was not abuse, but you got it a little bit, when you needed it, right? But that was something I said, from that point, we made the decision that we're not going to raise our children that way. And it's been a lot of good conversations. What's right, what's wrong, how to live your life. And we've had those conversations with our girls since we were little. So
speaking of our wonderful children, thinking about our firstborns, think about that first time you came home from the hospital, left the postpartum floor, baby in the car seat, you and your significant other, your wife, and you drive her home and you walk in the doors. You recall what that moment was like?
yeah, I remember it like yesterday. Leaving Shore Memorial Hospital. My wife and I both thinking like, they're gonna let us go home with the child. Like, what? We've never done this before, right? Playing that song, which I found out years later is not like a great song, but the refrain said, "You're beautiful, you're beautiful." And playing that song in the car, driving home. We went upstairs, put Bella in between us, and we looked at each other and said, what are we going to do? Like, what do we do now, right? But I think in the back of our heads, we knew that, I think, going back to what we were talking about earlier, we sat there and said, we're going to love this baby, and we're going to keep giving and make sure that she's all right.
So I had a job opportunity while married. My wife was pregnant, and I moved out to Indiana. We don't know anyone in Indiana, by the way. Okay. So we moved out to Indiana. We're coming home from Clarion North. Just me, Mar, and our little child, Emily. And I remember it was like a movie. I was driving like on the back streets of Indiana. No one's around me, but I'm going, 15 miles an hour because I'm so scared, right? Like it's really like a movie. We get inside, and I remember a few things. I remember being petrified, like scared, because you realize it gets real right now. It's not just about you and another adult you got to take care of. it's about you, adult you got to take care of, and now a child that has no direction, no past experiences, no resources, nothing. Like you've got to give everything to this child. So scared, right? And then thinking to myself, can I do this, right? Can I do this? But what was greater than the fear was I was the father I never had. Like I am that man now. Now it gets real. And I knew in my heart there was nothing I wanted more, and there was nothing I was going to give to more than that. Like that was going to get all of my attention. There was nothing more important than that from that moment on and to this day, really. And she's 16 now,
Jabari, I think there's something kind of in between the lines here, though. I think that we should maybe talk about is you don't have a class, right? But a lot of times, like going home, a couple things, and I'll tie in my parents here. I had an unbelievable, almost stupid faith in myself, and that was because of my parents, right? I always tell people the story about, I think my sophomore year, my parents said, you have to go to college. One, you have to go to college. You're not doing anything else. You have to go to college. And two, you have to get a scholarship, right? Like that was the conversation. And it wasn't really a conversation. It was like, that's what's going to happen. Now they put me on the roadmap to do that. And I worked hard. But I just believed that I could do that because they told me I could do it, right? That was the reason. And I said, I'm gonna do it. Now, so I say all that to say I had like a belief in myself. Same thing with fatherhood. Like, I think I was kind of like built for it. But when I think about it, it's like when you get into certain situations, you're like, what do I do in this situation? And as I said earlier, having those role models, right? My dad, my mother, I think is part of the reason I became a really, really good father. Because I could always had something to look back on and say, like, what would we do in this situation or what would we do in that situation?
One of those things too, even when you don't have your own example, you ever adopt a set of parents, a set of adults that you want to model after?
I'm going to take this a little bit different angle. I would say you don't know what to do. You don't know. There's no manual. You don't know what to do. But I think the real question is, what are you prepared to do? And that is the question that you have to ask yourself. And there's a lot of men that I know, they don't ask themselves that question. And not only do they not ask themselves that question, they don't answer it with conviction enough to be successful. And I don't mean that in a negative way. What I mean that is like, you have to be prepared to sacrifice all of your resources for your family without hesitation. Like, meaning, I will give you my time. I will give you my money. I will give you my effort. I will give you whatever you need. And if I don't have it now, I will find a way to get it, right? I changed careers 3 times because I knew, hey, this isn't going to work for my family, right? Like you said, Tay, like you had to go from teaching to the business side, right? Like these are all sacrifices you make for your children, right? And I think that's the real question. What are you prepared to do? Because, us being out in Indiana, it was me and Mar and Emily, and there, no one to watch the kids, no one to call up, hey, come visit, come do this, come make us a meal, come do that. We knew no one. And so it was early mornings and late nights. I tell you that, it was all nighter sometimes, sleeping on my chest at 3:80 so my wife could get some sleep, and I'd be up and I thought I was at Ranger School again, watching the kid getting delirious, but that's what you have to be prepared to do.
Let me tap into that because that's a great follow-up for that thought, Mike. Can either of you share a moment you felt you had to give more than you thought you could as a father?
I don't think so, man. I knew what I was getting myself into, but I remember like those nights. But I'm crazy like that, man. Like I long for those nights, Now that the girls are older, right? Cell phones, life. Would I give be back on the couch, just nestled up?
There's been moments. I'm going to be vulnerable here. There's been moments. Probably when they were younger, not as much because I expected that they were babies. They didn't have resources I had mentioned. I think my hardest time is when the girls, right, like a year ago or, even now, they're both heavily involved in sports, right? And they have their own thought process at this point, and they have some of their own skill sets. And so when you've sacrificed a lot and given a lot, and your wife depends on you, your kids depend on you, and you're running a mile a minute. I see you at the gym 4:30 in the morning sometimes, Jabari, right? We're up early, right? And we're going and we take our kids to school. I see you in the car line, right? We take our kids to school, and then we're driving to practice here and driving to practice there at night. And it's 11 o'clock and we haven't put our head on the pillow yet. And we've done that week after week. There's been times where I'm like, do I have anything left in me? And when those moments happen, I've got a great partner I can talk to. I'm a faithful man, I'll get down and I'll pray about it. Somehow I'm given the strength, sometimes to come through. But, I remember distinctly being about 3 years ago, man, do I have anything left in me? Like, cause I'm wearing thin right now. I had a very demanding job at the time too. So, there's times, but you get through it, and then to your point, Tay, like your daughter gives you a hug in the morning and be like, Dad, you're the best. Or you have a Father's Day like yesterday and they give you the 10 reasons why they love you. And you're like, oh man, I got all the strength in the world,
Thank you. Thank you for really sharing that. So how do you refill your own cup so you can continue to give to your family? What are some ways that you want to talk about that you refill your own cup so you can continue to give to your family?
Yeah, I think, for me, it's probably a little bit of a alone time or some peace and quiet. It's the gym, it's golfing. And then really, what really rejuvenates me is time with them, but not running and racing, right? So for the past 3 years, one of the things we've done as a family is we go down to Florida for spring break when the girls are on spring break. We usually get an Airbnb. And I don't know if you remember when the kids were young and you take them on vacation, but you're like, you want to pack in everything. Like if you go to Disney, like I want to take them here. And they're just like exhausted. Everybody's like miserable.
Yeah.
So now when we go on vacation, we get a house and it usually has a pool and everybody is chilling. And we just have fun together, man. We go to dinner, whatever. And that every year we leave and it's just like, it's rejuvenating. This last year I had the opportunity. My daughter was studying abroad. We met in London. Her and I went to Paris for a couple of days. Just having those days off, not answering an email, not doing anything, but just spending some time with her. Those are the things that rejuvenate me now.
Yeah. It's taken me years to learn this, frankly. And I try to get better at it every year, but it's my time and it's me time. And that time is from 4:30 to 6:30 in the morning. 4:30 to 6:30 in the morning is my time. And during those time, I have a ritual. I work out, I journal, I have a gratitude journal. I write kind of a to-do list. I have some notes I write on meditation and patience. I do some breathing exercises. And, if I go 1 day without that, it's okay. 2 days I go 3 days without my me time and the 4:30, 6:30. It's not good for anybody. I need that time to kind of reset and get my mind right. I do my devotional during that time. I do my prayer time during that time. That's really, really important to me. My family goes on vacation too, Tay. We love that, but every year we do a camping trip. And I love the outdoors. I let the girls sleep in. They sleep in, I'm up early though. I have the fire. I'm cooking bacon. We're out on nature walks. I got my walking sticks. My walking sticks, Jabari. I make it for everybody. When I'm outside and I'm there, like I'm with nature. You don't have any Wi-Fi out there. I've got nobody's asking me for quota. Nobody's asking me what my numbers are this week, right? It's just me and the kids, and there's no phone cell service. They're just out there playing frisbee in the hammock, messing with the dog, and it's like living in the backwoods again. It's great. I love it.
So that's beautiful.
Do that once a year.
You find those, even the small moments to the in-between times, the car rides.
Yeah.
Just to practice. Sometimes you look over to you're driving and then you just look over at your child and you realize how much they've grown and the life that they may have that you always wanted them to have, but maybe you didn't imagine that they could have because there was a time you may not have believed in yourself, but now here it is. And there are moments when I pull up to the house and my kids and Krista will often wonder, what are you doing out there? Because I'll just stand and kind of look around. But then I tell her that I didn't see this. It just was not what I thought or imagined because that wasn't where I grew up was not the model. But those in between times, like when you're your child is just having those moments. And he kind of, especially with my son, I kind of reach over. He's still very affectionate. I reach over, hold his hand. He'll hold my hand, and yeah, you just look at their growth. It's amazing. But those in between times, sometimes you wait to get to the trip, but the in between things, the travel is just as important as the arrival.
Jabari, I just comment on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a message, I think, to fathers that have younger children, right? Maybe they're 1, 2, 3, maybe all the way up to 8. The grind is worth it. Like, I'm at an age now where my kids are 16 and 13, one's looking at schools already and they're starting to drive. And I was just talking to my daughter this the other day when they're saying, what do you want for Father's Day? And I was looking around and I was like, I got it. Like back in the day, I wasn't sure if this was ever going to come true, right? But like raising kids that are healthy, intelligent, working hard, doing the right things, getting accolades from school, talent in a lot of different things, good friends, kind, generous. And I'm like, that's from all the steps when they were little that you worked hard and you put the time in and you wondered, am I doing the right thing? Is this worth it? Are we going to do this? Is it worth it? And then you get to this point, you're like, you look over, you see your kid who's grown up and you're like, it was worth it. Every minute was worth it.
So with that being said, what ways, I think you're leading into this too, Mike, thanks for that. What are some ways you're different in your leadership now, professional, personal, in comparison to pre-fatherhood?
I think the biggest thing is I've grown in patience over the, when you're young, you want things like right away, right? And as you grow, you see, like you were just talking about, Mike, like to get to where you are, it was all those things you had to do, along the way. And so I think, that's a big way, right? Just developing, I think, the skill of being patient, and with everyone, right? And I think when you look at it from a leadership perspective, I think two areas. One, and this comes directly from my parents. It doesn't hurt to be nice. I think sometimes people look at leadership, right? And you look at like like how they commend Tom Brady for yelling and screaming at people on the sidelines. Sometimes people don't need that, right? And I think the other thing that I try to bring to leadership is to look past people's faults and find their needs, right? It's very easy, and especially in today's society, right? Everybody's a critic, everybody's an expert, everybody knows everything, but you never know how that person, whether it be your child, whether it be somebody that you're leading, somebody that you report to, or somebody that you report to, you never know how they're coming to you, right? What pains they carry, what happened to them this morning, right? For me, I always try to give people the benefit of that, but look past their faults and see their needs, and see if I can continue to give and exhaust that before something else has to happen. But for me, I think those are areas that I've developed as a leader and as a father.
You hit the nail on the head on a couple things. I love the Aristotle quote: "The more I know I don't know." I remember being in my 20s, being a military officer, and it was hard charging, go at all costs. You want it now, you want it done. To your point, And then I remember being a young associate at a big pharmaceutical company, and I couldn't comprehend why people wouldn't answer my emails after 5 o'clock or on the weekends. Like, what are they doing that's so important? Right? And then I had kids. And then I think of my younger self and say, like, how foolish was I? Like, I've got children at home where I'm running around and doing all these things. And, me as a young associate thinking, why can't they just get back to me? It's 5:30. They could get back to me. Meanwhile, now at 5:30, I've got 16 other things to do. So I think patience, to what you said today, absolutely. I also think be more understanding of people and their situations. You don't know what goes on behind closed door. You don't know the situation that people are dealing with. You don't know what their schedules are. I never thought my schedules would be this busy, but they are. And so, I've got to fit in time to, if someone wants a 5-minute phone call for career development, I might say, hey, I can talk to you at 8 o'clock at night. And that's the only time I can talk to you because I am packed from, that's the only time I have all day. And so I think being understanding, being more patient, and Tay, I'm going to agree with you. Love more. Like, it's that simple. Love more, and it's not just your kids and your wife; it's everybody.
Yeah,
that's
no,
important. Yeah,
consistency. Mike, it's fine. You said the thing about email, right? And it's so funny. And Jabari, you'll appreciate this. Being in the ed tech space, we call in the like superintendents, assistant superintendents, school districts all the time, right? And over the years, I've been blessed to work with a lot of great leaders across the country, that sit in the superintendent seat or are leaders at school district. And past couple of years, I said, how many emails, do you get a day, right? How many calls do you get a day, right? And they're like, depending on the size of the district, anywhere from like 300 to 500, emails. And so like when I'm coaching my team, like guys, like you have to be patient, right? Like this is a long man's game, right? You're not going to send an email and get that answer that you want right away. They're getting like 500 emails, but I think what ties it back in is like what you were saying is like being authentic, right? Bringing humanity into what you do, right? So when you meet that person, don't treat them like they're a prospect, right? Or an object, but like actually build a connection with that person. I don't care if I make the sale right away. I don't care if I ever make the sale, but if we can connect on a human level, the chances of us partnering in some way, shape, or form in the future have increased exponentially because I treated them like a human. And I don't do it in a fake way, right? But it's like, I want to learn about you like a human. If we can do business together, we can do business together. And so like you're saying, I think it just like being consistent and having those things weave throughout your life authentically and not just turning it off and on makes a huge difference. Same thing with parenthood, right?
Yeah, I very much early on, especially in the field of education, you can easily use the default. If it's good for kids, it doesn't matter. Like the adults, you're just going to get in line or you get run over. And that's how I operated. I think part of it too was the whole idea of, I think, a little imposter syndrome, a little insecurity, that drive and ambition, knowing our backgrounds and where we're from. And I think Tay and myself and even the model your mother set, Mike, we're very mission driven, no excuses.
Yep.
And that whole way of operating, while there are times where I have some great successes, I ran over some people along the way and I forgot the humanity, the human side of those individuals. And now after having kids, especially when we have children who make you realize you can't take yourself so seriously. My own daughter right now, when I say something so absurd, just pat you on my head or my shoulder, like you're gonna be all right. that's all I get. And then of course you have our wives that keep us grounded as well, and look how let us go off into our rants and until we like settle down. Like, are you all right now?
Yeah.
But I think that now, like Tay and Mike, you guys are saying, being able to detach, to sit back and realize that that person is showing up as their best, and their best may look different every day. And we never forget that. And I think Brene Brown's The Power of Vulnerability, that video hit a long time ago, that TED Talk hit a long time ago, and her phrase, be brave, not perfect, is something I really held into my own identity and brought forth into the work too, because we make so many mistakes as parents and our own flaws that it kind of just keeps us more humble in how we show up and engage with others. So
hey Jabari, something very interesting from which I took it from education, my belief on education, and throughout my career, and it was the whole concept, as you're saying, is I knew I couldn't teach a kid until I made a connection to a kid, or that kid knew that I cared about him, right? So when you look at leadership, if your team doesn't know that you care about them, you can't lead them, right? And I'd be in the cafeteria, man, and these teachers would be like dogging these kids, like these kids aren't going to amount to nothing. I'd be like, why are you here? Like, just like go on, right? But
I
like
hate that.
every day when the kids would walk into the room, like, I see the videos now, like I was a little bit ahead of time, right? I see everybody doing their handshakes. I used to high five every day, right? I wanted to make that connection, let them know, like, just feel that I was there for them, right? And I've carried that like throughout my career. Even now, like I'll get on one-to-ones and I have like AEs that are eager. They want to talk about their pipeline and stuff. I'm like, whoa. Like, how was your week, mate? How was your weekend? How you doing? Like, what's going on in your life? Like before we can even get into anything else. And even my daughter sometimes in the morning, she's like, Dad, can we do this? And I'm like, good morning, right? Like, can we have like a connection real quick? So like that's been important, and not only, my personal life, but also in the work field, the workforce as well.
Say, I got a comment on that. I remember when I was a young leader, someone telling me this, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right.
Yeah, that's so
And
good.
I thought I knew what that meant. I thought I knew what
Right.
that meant. But here is a way to test yourself if you really know what that means. How much of the conversation when you have with an employee or a person is about them and what they're doing and just connecting versus about business or about what you need or about if it's not more about them and authentic, connecting with them, then you really don't understand that quote. And the other way I would say is not just how much of that conversation, ask yourself, and you can go to any Starbucks, you can go to any giant, whatever, grocery store, and watch how people treat the people behind the deli or the barista. Are they saying thank you? Are they saying, hey, I appreciate it? Or how was your day today? Right? Hey, how's everything going? Are you doing that? Like, ask yourself that, really, because that's how you'll really understand, do you really care about people?
Especially when you say, like, when you ask someone, how are you doing today? Or how you doing? And then they keep walking, but you set a tone by like stopping and standing still to wait for a response. And
you gotta be careful doing that in the Northeast, Jabari.
Yeah. Oh, not outside, somebody at work. Hey, careful. Safety first. So
I know this isn't a sales podcast, but Mike, you may appreciate this. Typically in a meeting, Jabari, we get, maybe a half an hour or an hour, right? Hours like perfect, got an hour slot. And now when I train, my AEs, or if I train salespeople, I tell them, like, listen, if we're in this together, like, or if we get into a meeting with a superintendent or a leader, I'm like, your goal is to try to go at least 15 minutes before even talking about product, right? And so, look around the room. What pictures do they have up? Do you see their family? Like, what are the problems in the dish? Like, just get to know, see if you can get to know. Now, some people are strictly business, right? And they want to jump right in. Okay, they give you permission to do that. But I always try to go at least 10 to 15 minutes, just having a conversation. And you'll find out some, one of my favorite people is a business administrator from a district in South Jersey. We both have 4 daughters. And sometimes our meetings or our calls are, 15 minutes about each other's daughters and how they're doing and what stage of life they're on. And I love that relationship. Right. And so I've tried to train my, like my team to, like, get to know people, right? It'll make the sale or to make life so much better.
I think you can apply that with your kids too. Do you get to know their friends?
Yep. Yeah. So true.
Actually get to understand their friends and how they operate, right? My daughter has a good friend, Sydney. She's great. Sid the kid, we call her, right? Do you get to know them? And then what you demonstrate. My kid was at a lacrosse tournament this weekend, and I was the parent in charge of handing out roster to coaches, right? And so you can apply that. And, like, I didn't just go up to the coach and start talking business, Oh, I see you're from, Slippery Rock. I know somebody that went to Slippery Rock. Or, hey, you're in Rhodes, Tennessee. Yeah, I just traveled down to Tennessee. How do you like it? Great. Would you like a roster? Sure. And my daughter saw the list of coaches I saw at the end. She's like, Dad, I think I saw 40 coaches in the last 2 days. How'd you get so many coaches? And then you demonstrate to your kid, like, this is what you do when you want to introduce yourself, or how you talk to people, or, I think it is about being generous and curious and authentic. And that's how you get to know people, and people want to get to know you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So true.
And speaking about your children, how do you see generosity reflected back to you from your own children?
To all the dads out there, be prepared. This comes in different phases at different ages. Okay. When they are, I would say, preteen, there's a lot of affection, a lot of hugs, right? That you will receive from them, which is great. A lot of affection, attention. Then they get into, 14, 15, and that affection just goes away. And sometimes they get silent. But you can see it in how they treat other people, right? What do their friends say about them? What does their friend group look like? What do their teachers say about them? What do their coaches say about them? I think you've got to really pay attention to that, because if your kids are hanging with the kids that are getting in trouble or causing a ruckus, or they're doing adult things at an early age, you might have to guide your kid in a different direction. But when you see your kid saying thank you to the bartista behind the door, or hey, can I please have a napkin, or can this, like, they're picking up on that generosity, and they're sharing it with other people. They may not share it directly with you all the time, especially at that 14, 15 age, but they'll share it with other people. I think that's important. So there's some ways that I see the generosity through my kids. How they treat their mother is huge. When mom talks, everybody listens, including me. But that's great, right? They respect their mother, right? Because sometimes when you have girls and you have a mother, there can be clashes there. What they want to wear, their makeup, their earrings, things that I don't know about that their mother do. And so how they handle that conversation, how they approach that conversation, how they listen to their mother, how they respect their mother, I think that is the way that you see generosity through them. I think there was only one time my youngest gave some lip to my wife. And then she saw my reaction, and that didn't happen.
Gave some lip.
Yeah.
Say, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say, you see it in in multiple ways, right? So for the little one, right, my Colby, it's, right now it's the hugs, right? It's when she comes home and in the pictures, right? Like a picture of her and I, right? Like at the park. And it, like that just, melted, right? Done, like that, means better than any, financial, gift you could give. I think, for the teenagers, it's more of a reflection of, I think one of the generosity is like just spending that time with them, right? But then seeing how they treat each other sometimes. Like I love when I see my third Nola spending time with Colby, right, and reading to her, or playing with her, or planning a sleepover, right, where they'll just go to one another's room and sleep over for the night, and they'll do the things, right, like the hair, the makeup, or watch a movie or something like that. I think in my oldest, I see how she treats other people, her friends. She's recently started dating somebody, so I see like how she's very thoughtful, with like the gifts and the things that she wants to do with them. And so, you see kind of like yourself in them, and I think, or the generous thing that you've done. And so I think that's how I see it kind of play out with my girls.
Mike and I experienced, our girls play lacrosse together, and Mike, you recall the banquet where the girls got a paper or a document listing all the ways, some feedback about what their teammates thought about them.
Yeah.
Some compliments and feedback. And it was really powerful to see that through the voice or words of someone else. And we hear that from other people, especially the unsolicited moments in meetings, especially too, with the fact that you realize your kids say they're crazy for home.
Yeah.
you hear
I'll take it though.
Exactly. How they respond in public, and how they're received because of who they are and their generosity. And also, I firmly believe in this phrase. I want you to get your take on it. The whole phrase, better us, better them. When you think about generosity and fatherhood, what does that phrase, better us, better them, mean to you?
I think, we're connected. What you say is one thing, what you do is more important. They watch every single thing that you do. Everything. If you're boozing on a Friday night and getting tipsy every Friday, they see that. You may think, oh, it's Friday night. Like, I'm calling it as I see it. You know, I know people like drink Friday nights, have a good time, but like, they're watching that. They're watching that. You're raising your voice, you're using profanity. They're watching that. They're seeing that, right? You're yelling at their mother. You say something wrong to them. They're watching that, right? You sleep in every Saturday and Sunday till noon because it's your time to rest in, and you don't get anything done around the house, and the grass is 8-inch high, and your yard looks like crap compared to everybody else. They're watching that. Like, everything you do, they're watching, and it matters a lot. I really get frustrated at men that I know that think it's okay to do things around their kids that are adult things that expose their kids to certain things, and they won't do that. It's just me doing that, you know? No. That's not how it works. And I can tell you firsthand because I was a kid and I know exactly what that does to the kid. Because when you expose them to that, that's what they do. Whether you know it or not, behind your back, under your back, whatever, that's what they do. And so it's not okay. It frustrates me. I think it's selfish, you know? I think to be a good father, you need to know selflessness, right? Meaning give up the things that you might want to do to make sure your kids have a good role model, right? Like, I'm pretty passionate about this because I don't want to go too deep, but I know what it's like, and it's not fun, and it's not okay. And people are like, it's not a big deal. I'm just getting drunk every 3 nights a week. You know, it's fine. No, it's not okay. Like, you know, the bottle of vodka is empty on the table. It's fine. I'm okay. It's not, you know. So you have to hold yourself to a higher standard if you expect them to have high standards. It's that simple. And so it is true. A better us is a better them, you know? And so that's why I think the tip of the spear that you talked about in the beginning of the podcast with me was, you know, how do I get better every day, every year? And I'm not perfect. I make a lot of mistakes. I'm not saying that, but I'm constantly trying to get better and better so I can create a better environment for my kids.
Thanks for listening to ROG, Return on Generosity podcast. Please help us grow by subscribing and reviewing us on your favorite podcast player. And for more information, visit bridgebetween.com. We grow when we give.
우리는 나누면서 성숙합니다.
We grow when we give.
On rayonne quand on donne.
We grow when we give.